Kislev, the Hilula of a famous rabbi that was from Tunisia. His name was Rabbi Minani Bitan. He was a great rabbi of his time. I'm not too sure the exact date he was born. It was somewhere towards the mid or very late 1800s. I'm not too sure that in of itself, but he was a phenomenal rabbi. I believe he would eventually pass away, would live in close proximity to the city of Bet Shemesh in Israel, in Moshav, and passed away on the 23rd of Kislev. That's naturally 2 days before the Jewish festival of Hanukkah. I think it was in 1986 when he would pass away, if I'm not mistaken. And let's explore a few of the highlights of the famous rabbi's life. And we've spoken about various rabbis with a family named Bitan in this series already. That's something I would definitely point out. It was Tunisian, most predominantly Tunisian family, and very interesting. So what's interesting, I think his mother's name was Grusana, Rabbinit Grusana, and his father's name was Rab Alush Bitan, if I'm not mistaken. And yes, he was born in an area in Tunisia called Zerizis. He happens to have been born over there. Now, while he was young, he would actually learn Torah under the auspices of a really great Tunisian rabbi of his time, Rabbi Shalom HaKohen. So who was he? He was, I believe, the father of Rabbi Moshe Kalfon Rabbi Moshe Kalfon HaKohen, who was one of the great rabbis of Tunisia in his day, without doubt. A rabbi we've spoken about on various occasions before. And I recommend everyone to watch over that video we recorded about Rabbi Moshe HaKohen. I think we recorded the video, I think maybe we recorded 2 or 3 videos at the time of his Hilulot in the past. So he would actually learn auspices under Rabbi Kalfon Moshe's father's auspices while he was at a young age. Remember, Tunisia at that point in time, especially during the 1800s, particularly, will have a very great Jewish community in of itself. So that's very, very interesting. Okay, so he will learn over there in Zerizis, and hopefully at one stage we will record a video about the history of Tunisian Jewry and who are the rabbis over there of that window of time, and explore about the yeshivot and the various different synagogues that happen to have been there. So he would actually be there, and he would learn, I think, within regards to various different important Torah topics in example. So what it says is, הוא החל ללמוד עם הפעוטות או לרוב כישרונו, אבל לימוד בכיתת הבוגרים. כשסיים לימודיו, הצטרף להביא מלאכת הצורפות אך קשרה בצער הילדים. So I think he would also work at that point in time. It could be the family itself had a specific business related, and so he would also be involved with that, while also having a very, very premium constant, let's just say, amount of Torah learning being done in of itself. So that's something that I would very much recommend everyone to look into over here. I'm just going to take a seat in the meantime. And yeah, sorry. Good morning, everyone. We are just doing a live video on the exploring history of a great Tunisian rabbi of the name of Minani Bitan over here. So welcome if you're new on the channel, and guys, we're going to just learn more. We're talking about how at a young age you would get imbued in a good Torah education at that point in time, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, maybe it was a goldsmith industry the family was working in, but that I'm not too sure about over there. Okay, so סיים לימודו, הצטרף להביא מלאכת הצורפות אך קשרה בצע ילדים שעמדו בלא רואו ומלמד, עזב את עבודתו עם אביו והחל לשמש כמלמד תינוקות. He would actually stop, I think, with working with a family's business, with a father's business, and eventually he became an educator, educating I think kids Torah. And חמנין ביטן חשש מבטל את הילדים, ואף בחול המועד שנהוג היה לתת להם חופש, היה מכניסם בבית הכנסת לשירת פיוטים כמיטב מסורות יהודי תוניס. So he was very, very into the, let's just say, the Tunisian Masorah in of itself, and imbuing the people with the rich heritage of Tunisian Jewry in of itself, especially when it came to piyutim, with songs, with poetry, tefillot, bakashot. So he would really, really educate the kids also, as being a grandiose educator, really within regards to that realms of expressing with song and poetry to Hashem in himself. Now, it's actually interesting. So he would be doing this for many years. I think come with the year 1956, Rabbi Bitan would be fortunate enough to go to Eretz Israel with his wife, if I'm not mistaken, and they would live in a moshav called Mesoa or Meshoa, I believe. It's actually quite near Bet Shemesh where we're recording this video. And לא ארכו הימים, והוא התבקש לעבור לעיר צפת. So we have a window of time over there, and eventually go to the holy city of Tzfat over there. כדי למלא את מקומו של חכם חומני אלוש. So he is going to take over the job. Another great rabbi, Rabbi Chomeni Alush, who had passed away over there in Tzfat as a rabbi over there. Now, Rabbi Minani Bitan נעתר לבקשה ועמד בראשו קהילת צפת. So he'd be the head of this grandiose community here in Tzfat, in the holy city of Israel, and really bring about, tradition, continuation, Torah, and so on and so forth. That's what we get. And כדרכם של חכמים עסק בכל מקצועות הקודש, והיה מוהל ושוחט בר אוריין. So he would perform kosher slaughter. He was a mohel, also performing brit milah, circumcision. That's something also, so we have to point out. So in all his workings, very tzniut and humble. Now, לקראת חג הפסח, הקים בצפת מאפייה כדי שיוכל לספק מצות כשרות באפיות יד מנהג יהודי תוניס. I'm just going to take a short break. Hold on a minute. Yeah, thanks everyone for being patient. Sorry about the delay. over there. So we're talking about Rabbi Minani Alush, a great Tunisian rabbi of his time. He would go to Eretz Israel, to the land of Israel, I think come at the year 1956, and would live in the moshav called Mesoa. This is quite near Bet Shemesh, city of Bet Shemesh. And so as before, he requests to go to Tzfat, and he would take over the position of Rabbi Chomeni Alush, another great rabbi of his time, who hopefully we'll speak about more towards the end of the class. Become a mohel, he'll become a shochet, kosher slaughterer, a bar uriyin. Tambi Yashai was very tzniut with regards to what he did, and we talk about how he would, work in the baking, especially continue the tradition and the Masorah of Tunisian Jewry in of its own right. Now, I think he passed away on the 23rd of Kislev, according to, seemingly it was in 1986, and he was buried in Tzfat, in the holy city. Tzfat is one of the 4 holy cities of Israel, along with Tiberias, Hebron, and Jerusalem. That's something that we have to point out. And many of his writings and teachings, I think, were in manuscript form, and I think in the Beit Knesset, the synagogue of Rabbi Alush Chomeni in Tzfat, if I'm not mistaken. And Achem nitmaleu tachab. עד שאי אפשר היה לפנתם והיה צורך לגונזם. בספר שיצא לזכרו ובאו מקצת חידושו מפי תלמידיו. So various different of his Talmudim, his students' teachings are actually written in manuscript form. We can explore within regards to that in the next coming minutes. So I'm just going to take a short 1 minute break over here, and I'll be back in 1 minute, friends, over here. So if you can all be patient, don't go away, anyone, and watch this space. I'm going to come back in a minute. Hi, shalom everyone. Thanks for being patient and watching. And we are speaking about a great Tunisian rabbi today, Rabbi Minani Bitan over here. Some of the history within regards to him happens to be his Hilula here on the 23rd of Kislev. Always a great privilege. Let's speak a bit about the rabbis he was associated with, and then we will speak about, let's just say, some of the highlights of his book. So what's interesting is his rabbi early on in his life, very early in his life, was Rav Moshe Kalfon HaKohen's father. Let's say something about Rav Moshe Kalfon HaKohen. He was known as a Ramach, and he was one of the great rabbis, let's just say, of the island of Jerba in Tunisia, especially during the 20th century. The family itself of his rabbi was Cohen by birth, let's just say, in of itself. Rav Shalom HaKohen, if I'm not mistaken, and his wife Terachi, so his rabbi Bitan's rabbi was someone named Rabbi Shalom HaKohen. Who was he? He was a great rabbi, and he was actually living in the island of Jerba in the coast of Tunisia. And what's interesting was his father's name was Rabbi Moshe HaKohen also, who was author of the great book, the Pnei Moshe HaKohen, and or Pnei Moshe Halfon, I think is the nickname. And his great-grandfather was someone named Rabbi Shaul HaKohen, who was the head of the rabbinical court in Jerba. So this HaKohen family itself was a great key family in Tunisia, of that specific day in of itself. So that's very, very, very interesting. Now it's actually interesting. Rabbi Bitan's Rabbi Moshe, the family itself was was quite well off in general, and they were very well known for, let's say, generosity and support for the elderly and the poor in Jerba, and this was especially at his young age. His father, Rabbi Shalom HaKohen, who was a rabbi of Rabbi Bitan initially, was author of many great books, including Nahar Shalom, the Hefetz Yakar, the Hagim V'Shalom, and was, I think, at one stage in time, the head of the local rabbinical court in Zervis near Jerba. Interesting enough. And eventually, I think Rav Shalom HaKohen would actually move to mandatory Palestine to move to Tzfat in of itself. So Rabbi Minani Bitan's desire for Tzfat very much would also be imbued from his rabbi, Rabbi Shalom HaKohen, which is very, very interesting enough. So it's actually interesting. It was a great crowd of rabbis in that specific day in time, as I think the Rabbi Shalom HaKohen, who was a rabbi of Rabbi Bitan, was also very close to other rabbis, including the famous Rabbi Yosef Berebi, if I'm not mistaken. And and if his father would become the Rav Shalom HaKohen, was a rabbi, I think, of Zervis. I think he was working in Jewish law, in ritual slaughter, and so on and so forth. So it was very much a great community and stuff. And that's what's interesting. Rav Moshe HaKohen, Kalfon HaKohen, would actually get married at the age of 21. This is the son of Rav Shalom HaKohen we're talking about. And he would get married to Rabbinit Masida, the daughter of Rabbi Aaron HaKohen, another great rabbi there was in of that self. And it will be very exciting to actually record a book, let's just say, on the history of the rabbinic dynasty of the HaKohen family in of itself. But we went on a bit of a tangent now. Another rabbi that was close, let's just say, and the rabbi that Rabbi Minani Bitan would take over in Tunisia was in Israel would be Rabbi Khomeini Alush, who would take over his pulpit, I think, at that point in time. Let's say about Rabbi Khomeini Alush, another great rabbi. He was born in the year 1897 and he passed away in 1955. He was a rabbi, if I'm not mistaken, and a great rabbi in Tunisia. And he would, at the end of his life, naturally be in the holy city of Tzfat and would author various great books, if I'm not mistaken. And he was also a Dayan. He was an author. I think the books was Ani Choma and Shabtei Mekomi, if I'm not mistaken. Two great Torah colossal books. Let's say a bit about Rabbi Alush Khomeini. I think it's an appropriate time. He was actually born, I think, in the city of Jabs in 1897 in Tunisia. And he had a very decorative life, let's just say himself. בשנות ה-20 לחייו עבר לעיר מדענים, שם שימש כמלמד תינוקות. He also, just like Rabbi Bitan was, he was also an educating children and youth, I believe. And he would be ordained as a dayan, as a Jewish judge, gradually, at a progressive time. I think in 1926, Rav Kamos Haddad passed away in 1926. Rav Alush Khomeini would be appointed the rabbi of Medani, respectively, over there at that point in time. And I think come the year 1950, if I'm not mistaken, Rav Alush Khomeini would actually go to Eretz Israel at that window of time. Very, very opportune. And he would actually live in the holy city of Bצפת over there and would continue teaching, educating in Torah, the throngs of the public in Bצפת, making a big imprint. So when Rabbi Bitan would actually come in, he would be able to follow in his footsteps at that point in time. And he would, I think, so that's very, very interesting. He, if I'm not mistaken, passed away on the 3rd of Elul in 1956, and he was actually buried, I think, in the Beit Kvrot Ari Bצפת, if I'm not mistaken. He left over some great books, Rav Alush did, on the Torah, and it would come out, I think, later on. After he passed away, I think some of his Talmidim would actually bring back some of the Chidushim, his teachings, in a great Torah colossal book called the Ani Choma. That's something else that we've got to point out over here. Now let's go back to Rabbi Minani Bitan and explore a few of the highlights from his great books. He left a lot of great writings, which we have to point out. One of the teachings he gives in the book, I'm using the Homi website over here as a resource. I think the book was called, it said Yatet HaTshuva. I think it was published in 1987 in Bצפת, in the Holy City. And he would bring about, I think in page 147, a teaching that says, Melamed Pikuach Nefesh, Gam B'chut Shatnez, L'Tfirata, Chola Lacha N'tuach. This is one of the teachings he gives over here. Another teaching says over, I think in very much featured, if I'm not mistaken, I believe in page, in the same book over there, I think page 107. Melamed Shaya Shochen, L'Kol Dorosh Be'emza Harachov. Kafish Nahag B'Tunis. That's one of the things he would teach over here. Another teaching he says, I think in page 134, he says, Melamed Derech Liskot Minyanim Shanot Cholban Lefi Tarikh Ha'ivri V'Luzi. Over there, very interesting. And then Melamed Al Seder Limud HaYiladim B'Ma'agal HaShana. It's got to be in a calendar sort of format, the way it's taught over the teachings for the children. That actually, I think, is featured very much in page number 58, if I'm not mistaken. And one last teaching to give over, I believe, in page 59. It says, Melamed min Hagam b'seder aviyat hamatzot toch kriyat mizmurei halel. Very, very interesting. Look at page 59 over there. And it's, I think, it was once again from Yated HaTshuvot. It was printed in Bçfat in 1987. That would have been after, I think, he passed away. The Torah great book was over there. So it's Hilula, 23rd of Kislev. It marks 2 days before the Jewish festival of Hanukkah. So please learn more about the great rabbi. We're going to speak about more of the rabbis from the Tunisian district. We're going to do a special edition exploring the Jewish history of Tunisia. Also, I think that would be very appropriate and very opportune in of itself. And wishing you well, and thanks for watching, and have a great day, everyone. Thank you, I appreciate it, and please subscribe to the channel also, friends. Have an awesome day.